Okay, here we are going into another 8-man queue here in just a moment. Been looking at some sideboard plans kind of versus some of the main decks we're looking at. The main 5 decks really being Delver variants, Zombie variants, Naya variants, Red-Green aggro, and then also Esper variants. So kind of looking at some of the strategies, been trying to sculpt a more useful sideboard, and really decided to cover the sort of catch-all Fiend Hunter, made a couple shaves, and looking at, definitely using the gate here for the bonfires we've been running into. And here we are, starting in round 1, so should be ready here in just a moment. Looks like we are going to be on the draw. This hand looks just fine. And let's see what we're up against. So it looks like it's going to be either Esper mid-range, possibly, potentially Delver. We will see here in just a moment. Really excited to get kind of more games in against. I think it could potentially be, still Esper mid-range or Delver, but I really like this opening hand. I think we have a lot of power here. We're just going to go ahead and lead out with the Spellskite. We don't want to give away the fact that we've got Mortar Pod, just in case we can get him to drop a Delver. Okay, so Day of Judgment is telling us that we're up against either Esper Control or Esper Midrange. Now, I don't believe that Midrange runs any main deck copies of Day of Judgment, so could be a slightly different deck, but I think we've got to expect counter magic. Kind of with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and lead out with the Blade Splicer. Also wanted to make sure we didn't play our Cavern until we actually had a spell. We wanted to make sure it didn't get countered, so we could, hopefully whiff one of his turns by making him keep up Mana Leak mana. So still could be Esper midrange or Esper Control here at this point. I think that the mid-range version does run one copy of Forbidden Alchemy main deck, so could still kind of go either way. We've got to be careful of the Day of Judgment in the graveyard, just because he can still definitely Snapcaster into Day of Judgment Recursion. And with Spellbomb main, definitely looking a little bit more like the Esper Control version. Alright, so now, what is our play? I think that the plan here, we want to go ahead and copy our Splicer, or just drop a second Splicer. I don't think we really need to keep more 4 mana up. No reason to, we can drop out, well, let's think. So he could potentially have Snapcaster here into like Thought Scour. And if we bash him with Splicer, he gets our Splicer, but we have another Splicer backup, so I don't think we care. So I think instead we just drop a second Splicer, play the tap land, and get in. So like if he wants to trade Snapcaster for Splicer here, we're just fine. Now, I mean, we could be potentially walking into Day of Judgment here, but because he does have Mana Leak, Mana Up, we can't really drop the image here. So I think instead we do just drop Second Splice here. I mean, we have board presence, but we don't have like overwhelming board presence. We could just try to kind of like slow roll here a little bit, see what he does, but then like next turn he just leaves up 4 mana for Restoration Angel, and I suppose we can play Mortar Pot at that point. So I don't know if we want to play our Second Splicer here. I'm kind of tempted to, just because I think that a lot of these decks have kind of slimmed down a lot on their numbers of Day of Judgments. So I think we can get a lot of, a lot of pressure here. And then, this way he kind of has to scramble to get back into the game. He doesn't have the 6 mana yet to Snapcaster Day of Judgment, so he pretty much has to have one of his other 1 to 2 copies main deck either in the grip or in the next couple cards here. Now, because we didn't see him preordained, there's a decent chance that he might potentially have some other stuff in his hand, probably a Sun Titan or 2. Potentially could have like Consecrated Sphinx. This could be like the Sam Black version of Esper. So maybe Forbidding Alchemy number 2. Yep, and that's what it is. So almost certainly playing up against Esper Control at this point, just because I believe midrange only runs 1 main deck copy of Forbidden Alchemy. So he's 1 shy of Sun Titan mana, and like, what does he have to get back? Well, there's a Titan. I guess he did have the Day of Judgment here, so might have been a little bit loose, dropping a second Blade Splicer here. I think just because, mid-range and the controlling version have slimmed down a little bit on Day of Judgment, that there might have been merit there. To be honest, I'm going to have to take another look at the list to see if they are running 4 main deck, but we could have held back a little bit there potentially. So now he just kind of goes into Sun Titan next turn. So we are going to clone his Titan just to get back our Blade Splicer. In the meantime, let's set up kind of a nice little Pure Steel party, welcoming party. So we're going to go ahead and drop out the Pure Steel. And like, we could drop Collar here, but I really don't want to telegraph that we have Collar just yet. Or I mean, Mortar Pod to take out his, Titan if he has like Image or something like that. Although, I mean, if he has Titan, it doesn't really matter, so we can still just drop Mortar Pod. But I think we want to do end of turn Moorland Haunt here. Now, the problem is that he has Spellbomb, to get rid of our Yard, which kind of sucks, because then he can just go ahead and Titan, and we don't get to copy it for value. And actually, we should have responded there with our Moorland Haunt. Whoops, that was a mistake. Yeah. So we should be up 1 token here. There's an interesting post that I read a little recently that's talking about, right before making a snap reaction, taking an extra second to just think about the play. And, especially for anyone who's not a consistent tournament winner, myself included, I can really benefit, I'm sure we can all really benefit a little bit from this, just being able to take an extra second and just think about, kind of what our play is before we make it, just so we can kind of maybe cut down on some of the errors like that where you just don't think enough and then miss it. Granted, you do play a little bit slower then, but I think that the overwhelming benefit is worth it, even if you have a little bit longer matches, just to make sure you're playing correctly. So, I know I'm definitely, been guilty of making the snap play without thinking about it, and it's definitely come to bite me in the ass sometimes. So, it was a good read. I'm trying to remember who the author was, but it had some good stuff to say. So like here, either he was so afraid of our pure steel going off that he O-ringed, or he just didn't have Titan. Most likely he just didn't have Titan. So knowing he doesn't have Titan, we haven't seen Preordain, or not Preordain, but Ponder. And so we can kind of, start to get some idea of what his deck list, or what his hand might look like, kind of based on the list. This is kind of a good exercise just because it helps you figure out what your opponent might have in his hand, and then play accordingly. If you know that, of course, minus some of the cards that he could have drawn that turn, what he can't have because he would have played it, you can start to figure out what he is playing. And so, especially just because, this is an 8-man queue, it's always good to be practicing and finding out what's going on. Let's take a look. And this is maybe not the perfect list as to what he's playing right now, but what could he have in his hand? Let's see. So he wouldn't have Ponder, because if he had Ponder, he would have cast it. This could leave something like, this may be a different list here, but try to think about what he could have in his hand at this point. Not a Sun Titan, not a Ponder. Maybe another Day of Judgment, perhaps. Or Snapcaster for value. So I guess here we just go ahead and just drop out the Gather the Townsfolk. And no reason to drop Mortar Pod into... I think he could have Mana Leak here. It's very likely he has Mana Leak in hand. We haven't really given him an opportunity to use one yet, so it's a pretty good chance he has at least one Mana Leak in hand. This is probably Titan. Okay, so I guess he is playing the Lingering Souls version. Yep, so... Now we're happy to see if he trades. So I guess he's just down to one land, so we're able to get a free pass here on our Pure Steel. It's too bad we can't go Pure Steel Image into Mortar Pod. That would be amazing. But instead, we're happy to just go ahead and drop out the Pure Steel Mortar Pod, just to kind of slow down the beats a little bit. It's also possible he has like Deadweight in hand. Alright, not exactly what we were looking for, but it'll have to do. also very likely at this point that he has at least one Snapcaster, and probably just holding it in case he needs to Snapcaster into Day of Judgment. So if he swings in with the crew, we're just going to go ahead and Mortar Pod one of the spirits to negate some of the damage. Alright, so he does finally have Hellish Norn. Yuck. Luckily we do have the image backup, but we are going to take a pounding here in the meantime. So if he has the copy of the reanimation, we're kind of in trouble. Here we can gather, I mean, we still do have guys in the yard. I think that instead we might want to use the yard to start jumping tokens at this point. Like, we're really not racing yet, so I think it's better off for us to just go ahead and make a token on his turn and then block a spirit. So if he has the reanimation spell, we're on Burial Rites. We're kind of in trouble. And he does have the Unburial Rites. Okay. So I guess now we make a token, chump, drop to 5, and then do the same play next turn. Unfortunately, he also can make the same play next turn. And I forgot that he also has an Hellish Norn in play, so that doesn't actually work. So we drop to 2, and then he just reanimates Hellish Norn again, and we are in trouble. So if he makes the obvious play, which I assume that he will, and we're still dead on the table, yeah, fortunately that's just it. Okay, so against Esper Control, definitely want to bring in Fiend Hunter. Relic Warder is good because he does run Ratchet Bomb. Negate, very important to stop Day of Judgment. Purge, I'm not sure if we want to run Purge here. Like, he could be running potentially Liliana. I don't think that his version does. I think it's more about just like the Doomblade and the Deadweight. So I mean, Purge is not really what we want to be doing here. He's probably going to be bringing in like Wormcoil and all kinds of nonsense like that. Misstep is, I suppose it's good to stop a Ponder if he's running Ponder, which he may not be running. Like, it's good to stop Deadweight. There's not really enough targets for it. Definitely want to bring in the cage. So, okay, so looking at this, what do we want to cut? What does not do anything for us, really? Lifestaff's a pretty dead card here. What else do we want to cut? Body and Mind might be a nice card, but at the same time it could be potentially very detrimental, especially since he has, you know, a lot of the cards which benefit off of being the yard, especially like Lingering Souls. So Body and Mind might actually be a liability if we don't have Grafdigger's Cage lockout. I mean, if we do, we're fine, but if we don't, we're in trouble. He doesn't have a lot of creatures, you know, so I think Mortar Pod is fine, but I think it's maybe like a 2 of now. Image we still want to keep just for Hellish Norn. We definitely want to have access to Grafdigger's Cage right away. And I think Collar, we can also shave at least one copy here, just because while he does have wrath effects, we're not really comboing him out in any real way. Let's see. Well, we might still, but I think 2 is fine. Splicer we want for value. What do we cut? Not sure if you want to shave maybe Gather here. Gather seems a little weak. I mean, it makes Champion so much better. I think I'm just going to cut that for now. Possibly maybe Spellskite. Might have been a better cut there. This hand is definitely interesting. I'm not sure this is a hand we want to start with, but... well... what are we drawing into? Blade Splicer. Huh. We have enough land. We're more or less okay here. Now we can go Human, Illusion, and Angel. The problem with having this many Fiend Hunters is you can't actually play spells. I mean, we could just drop Fiend Hunter for 1 damage, but that seems just so terrible. Much more of a long game we're playing now. And we really just want to get a chance to lock down his graveyard if at all possible. So like, now it's probably worth a Wrath effect to get a little bit of value out of Splicer. I'm not sure we want to image it just because it's very possible he has Elesh Norn. I mean, at the same time we have Fiend Hunter for Elesh Norn, so it's not as bad. Like, we could also just Fiend Hunter one of his tokens, which would not be the worst. But I think imaging here is a little... well, I think it's fine. Now, let's think. We want to save image for Sun Titan. So we can image his Titan and we can get back our Blade Splicer if it dies. You know, I think with 3 Fiend Hunter, I'm just going to go ahead and Fiend Hunter one of his tokens. Now the good thing about this, okay, so I guess we can... copy a Blade Splicer now. Just kind of play that game. Okay, so now we copy our Blade Splicer, and then Fiend Hunter his token, I think, is the plan. Saving one Fiend Hunter. Now we use this to take down his Fiend Hunter and then start pushing. So this is a little dangerous by putting that in the yard, because now it gives him an out to Sun Titan it back. So I'm not sure if that was correct. I think now we just want to bash in with Fiend Hunter because we want to keep our actual Blade Splicer around in case we get an Angel. And, you know, in hindsight, keeping that image on the table might have been much better. Because now if he has Titan, he just gets us. He also more or less gets us if he has Wrath. Gideon also not so bad. So what is our play? I think we go ahead and equip the Mortar Pod to our actual Blade Splicer. Well, let's see. We don't want him to be able to kill our actual Blade Splicer, so I think instead we want to go ahead, equip with the Fiend Hunters, use it to kill the Spirit token, use the other Fiend Hunter to take out his Blade Splicer. No, we use our Spellskite. Let's see here. Yeah, I think we use the other Fiend Hunter to take out the other Blade Splice, then bash Gideon down to 3. And like at this point we can go ahead, and I think it's better here, like we could drop Spellskite, and Spellskite's fine, but I think it's better to equip the Mortar Pod to the Blade Splicer in case Gideon tries to kill them. We just kill Gideon in response. Although honestly he's probably going to kill the Golem instead. Yeah. I think he's more likely to kill the Golem. Try that. And part of the reason that we're able to hedge like this is because we still have a Fiend Hunter if we do happen to draw an Angel to get some extra value. So we're not just completely giving up on the Blade Splicer Angel plan. Day of Judgment before attacking seems a little awkward. Unless he's going to attack with Gideon. Which he probably is. Okay, so now we've got the angel part of it. We do not have the... Well, we can Fiend Hunter as Gideon if he chooses to attack, and actually, if we just play... If we hard cast Fiend Hunter and leave angel mana up... Let's see, do we have enough for that and Spellskite? I think we try to bait him. If you can get your opponent to play the way you want, you can really take advantage of him. I think I'm going to play up the Fiend Hunter, try to bait him, see if he goes for it. And I think he took the bait. So, assuming he doesn't have any kind of removal backup, like we could wait till next turn of Spellskite just to be absolutely sure, but if he has Go for the Throat, doesn't matter anyways. I think it's totally worth trying this here. And if he has the removal for the... Well, I guess he had the removal anyways. So that's unfortunate. So the better play there would have been to block first and then try shenanigans. So instead we go to 3. So blocking first and then the same play leaves us at 9. We have a little bit more maneuverability, and he had the double Go for the Throat, which is pretty rough. Alright, so now I think we want to drop Spellskite just to make sure we're recovered. What are we going to get? We can go get Grafdigger's Cage. We can go pick up... I think it's going to be Grafdigger's Cage for sure. So let's go ahead and drop the Spellskite to make sure we don't get it countered. And we still have mana for the cage. Yeah. Because I'd rather have Spellskite Resolve than Cage, I think. We could also just pick up Collar here to start getting value. Collar may actually not be the worst idea. I mean, Cage is still very good, but in the current position we're in, you know, where we're basically dead on the table in a very short order, I think Collar might be a little better. So now, I mean, we can go ahead and... There's no reason to play this turn because he'll just counter it. But I think instead we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and Mortar Pot up the Spellskite just to get a little bit more value. So like this way he activates Gideon, bashes in, we chump a Spellskite, and then, you know, we reduce Gideon's counter by 1. Because he's still pushing at this point. Elesh Norn number 2. Yuck. Okay. No choice there. Yeah, and unfortunately, I guess he is indestructible, so we can't actually remove tokens in that manner. Yuck. That unfortunately is going to do it. Well, that knocks us out of another 8-man queue, so a little painful, but you know, I think it's good kind of, you know, playing against some of these decks that we haven't played as much against, trying to like learn the matchup, see what the plan is. And thanks guys for watching. We'll catch you next time.